Five Nights at Freddy's. Fazbear Frights. Number 1. Into the Pit. Stitchwraith story. Propping his foot on an open drawer, Detective Lawson leaned back in his wooden desk chair. Its typical creak sounded unusually loud in the absence of the daytime chaos of the divisional office. The bullpen was crammed with 12 desks, double that number of chairs, triple that number of computers and monitors and printers, a smattering of bulletin boards and storage cabinets and work tables, and the lone malfunctioning coffee maker stuck in the corner. The coffee maker spewed out abysmal coffee, but it made a musical hissing sound that a couple of the detectives thought sounded like Ride of the Valkyries. It was on one of its more screeching crescendos right now. Lawson shook his head. He only noticed how depressing the place was when all the people were gone, as they were on this late Monday evening. He should have been gone too, but he wasn't in a hurry to get back to his empty apartment. Ever since his wife, Angela, left him, filed for divorce, and embarked on a mission to be sure he saw their 7-year-old son, Ryan, as little as possible, Lawson didn't see the point of going home. Home wasn't home. It was a 2-bedroom walk-up that, according to Ryan, smelled like pickles and had the ugliest carpet ever. He told himself he'd stay late and catch up on reports, but he was really just sitting there feeling sorry for himself. Was he really the horrible dad Angela accused him of being? Sure, the job forced him to miss a lot of Ryan's games and school events. Yes, he'd broken a lot of promises to his son. "I'll be home in time to throw the ball, Ryan," turned into, "Sorry, I got a new case." "I'll take you camping this weekend," turned into, "Sorry, the chief called me in." "He's your son, Everett," Angela kept saying to him before she left. "He's not an afterthought. He should be your reason for being, not something you'll get around to someday." Angela just didn't understand. He loved his son, of course, but this job wasn't just a job. Yep, he was definitely feeling sorry for himself. Not the best use of his time. Lawson shifted, trying to find the ever-elusive, comfortable position in his desk chair. He looked around at the place where he'd spent 2/3 of his life over the last 5 years. It really was a bleak room. Dingy beige walls, flickering fluorescent lights, scuffed grey linoleum floor, all that furniture in perpetual disarray. Were detectives so lowly that they deserved such surroundings, or were they just too darn busy to do anything about it? Lawson shifted his gaze to the line of narrow windows that marched along the outside wall of the room. At the end of the row, he noticed a skinny ivy vine growing through a gap between the window frame and a dirty window that let in the sickly yellow glow of a street lamp. "There's my favorite sucker." Lawson suppressed a groan. That's what he got for not going home. "Chief," he said. Chief Monahan wended his way through the empty desks, wrinkling his nose when he passed Detective Powell's monument to slumbery. The chief looked down at the piles of paperwork and empty food containers. Don't know, don't want to know. From where Lawson sat, the office smelled like disinfectant. His partner, Detective Roberts, whose desk faced Lawson's tidy domain, sprayed the stuff incessantly to mask whatever it was that seemed to have died in Powell's desk. The chief propped a foot on the extra chair next to Lawson's desk. He held out an envelope. Lawson eyed it. He had strong suspicion he wasn't going to like what was in it, so he made no move to take it. The chief tossed the envelope onto Lawson's smudged green desk blotter. It landed next to the row of freshly sharpened pencils Lawson had lined up for his evening's drudgery. "The Stitch Wraith," the chief said. "No one else wants it." "I don't want it." Tough. The word sounded exactly that when the chief said it. A compact, prematurely grey-haired man. The chief made it clear early in his career that his size and hair color had nothing to do with his ability to kick ass. He wasn't big, but he could do what any big man could do, and he sounded like a big man with a loud, rough voice you didn't argue with unless you absolutely had to. Lawson had to. He did not want to see what was in the envelope. "The Stitch Wraith is an urban legend," Lawson protested, still not touching the envelope, which lay like a big slug next to his foot. Not anymore. You heard the latest? Chief Monahan clearly wasn't going to listen to dissent. Lawson sighed. How could he not have? It was all over the news, and the public was demanding answers. A local teen, Sarah something, disappeared a week before, and the detectives assigned to the case, not Lawson, who gave thanks for small favors, had several dozen eyewitnesses who claimed the girl turned it into garbage right before their eyes. Now admittedly, the eyewitnesses were public school kids, not always the most stellar purveyors of truth, but in this case their stories had a ring of authenticity, in spite of the outlandish content. I heard, Lawson admitted. Can't make heads or tails of it, I know, but this morning we had most of the witnesses back in to see the psychologist. The shrinks confirm the witnesses believe what they're saying. Same goes for the people who've seen the Stitch Wraith. Lawson rolled his eyes, then said in a deep voice, a strange cloaked figure roaming the streets. He returned to his normal, unremarkable voice. Did I go to sleep and wake up in a horror flick? The chief snorted, then indicated the envelope with a shift of his square jaw. You haven't had the best part. Open it. Lawson took a deep breath and put his foot on the floor. He tipped his chair forward. It creaked again, this time louder, as if it too had no interest in the Stitch Wraith, and needed to voice its own objection. Lawson picked up the envelope. Pulling an inch-thick stack of papers from it, he flipped through a few witness reports. Like the school kids' reports, these witnesses' testimonies all sounded similar, though they still had enough detail to diminish the possibility of a hoax. The Stitch Wraith, witnesses said, was a shrouded figure in some sort of cloak, cape, or hooded coat. It had a latching walk, a complete disinterest in others unless bothered, and an obsession with dumpsters and trash bins. It was usually seen dragging garbage bags full of no one knew what. He'd heard all of this before. He, and most of his fellow detectives, had dismissed it as bunk. Setting aside the witness reports, Lawson flipped through the next few sheets in the envelope. They were all suspicious death reports. Lawson kept his face blank as he read, and he was glad the chief couldn't see the frisson of dread that skittered along his nerve endings. He felt like the reports dropped a stone into the pond of his life, and now their impact was rippling inexorably outward towards some future he wasn't going to like. Lawson flipped through the stack. 5 withered bodies with... He looked down and read, from the top report stack, eyes that bled black down the sides of the face. More of that? The manner of death wasn't new to Lawson, unfortunately, but he'd only known of one victim, and he didn't know it had anything to do with the Stitch Wraith. Chief Monahan shrugged. Lawson read more carefully. 2 of the dead men found had impressive criminal histories. Lawson recognized one of the guys. He'd collared him for assault a few years back. He separated out the 2 reports and tapped them. I bet these 2 tried to mug the guy. The chief, who had finally sat down in Lawson's visitor chair, nodded. I agree. He leaned forward and pointed to a stack of photographs Lawson hadn't looked at yet. Look at those. Lawson flipped through the photos taken from security cameras near the Stitch Wraith sightings. He squinted at one that showed the figure pulling what seemed to be a mannequin's torso from a dumpster. What the heck is he doing? The chief didn't answer. Lawson kept going through the photos. He stopped again. From under the hood of what looked like maybe a long trench coat, a bulky white face peered out at the night. Lawson stiffened so he wouldn't recoil. He wanted to drop the photo and get as far from his desk as he could, but he didn't do that. He just stared at the strange visage and concentrated on breathing normally. He wasn't going to let his craziness rattle him, especially not in front of the chief. The face wasn't a face, not a human face anyway, unless it was a damaged human face covered in bandages maybe. It looked more like a mask. The face was round, and its features were drawn onto the curved white surface. Done in thick black marker, the black features looked like a child had made them. Lawson deliberately relaxed his shoulders, which he realized had been creeping toward his ears. It's just a stupid mask, he told himself. Lawson looked up at Chief Monahan. A mask? Your guess is as good as mine. Lawson looked back at the face. It had dark eyes, one of which looked blackened, and it had a terrifying mouth, with a missing tooth and something stuck between the remaining front teeth. With those bloodstains around the mouth, we got a match on it. The chief pressed his thin lips together in what could have been a smile. He liked dropping bombshells. A match on what? This? Lawson pointed at the blurred and bizarre face. The chief nodded. And you're not going to believe where we got it from. And that is the end of the Stitch Wraith story. Thank you for listening to this read-through of Five Nights at Freddy's Fazbear Frights #1, Into the Pit, the Stitch Wraith story. I really hope you enjoyed listening to it. If you did enjoy it, make sure you hit that like button. I really do appreciate it. And if you're new to this channel, please subscribe to get the next Stitch Wraith story. Also, make sure you click that bell so you'll be notified whenever I upload it. And I'll be back next time with the next Stitch Wraith story.